make things easier. Is I think a lot of times corporations, you tend to overthink things,
Sure.
and there's usually an easier answer out there than what, like, there's an easier scrappy way to do things in enterprise.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Franchise. I'm your host, Paul Ehlinger, and I'm super excited. We've got a really awesome, just really intelligent guy on the show today, Derick Jaros. Derick, maybe give us the quick rundown of who the heck you are, what your background is, and what you're doing today, and then I think we'll get into some really interesting conversations around local marketing, packaging, and things that maybe most people are missing.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on the show. So I started my career doing like strategy M&A. I did that for a couple different companies, including Home Depot.
Mm.
I was there almost 8.5 years. Basically helped them do a lot of different things like localization on the store side, as well as some e-commerce stuff. Left there and basically became the startup person for large companies. So I
Yeah.
helped First Data, acquire an e-com platform. I helped Cox Media move into e-commerce. Helped another company called Pratt like do something on the customization side of things. So
Mm.
yeah, just kind of have been around doing a lot of different things, and also of course Yext. I think we're going to talk about for like local SEO.
Yeah.
And just recently, about a couple of years ago, I launched my own company, customboxes.io, to basically help companies brand their business and go online easier.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I love you've got you started enterprise and then worked your way down to starting your own company. So you've gone the reverse of some people in their careers. I guess first one, what's it been like starting a company? Very different than Home Depot.
Yeah. It's like so I ran a couple different businesses for Home Depot, and I thought, I mean, I thought I was doing well.
Yeah,
I was doing a good job in terms of like my bonus and that sort of thing. So I was like, I left and I started my own company, my first one, to basically help do a startup for them, and I learned how hard a business is to run. And
yeah,
so I always told my wife that gave me my PhD in business at that point in time. That was actually more valuable than my MBA. But yeah, it's been so that's when I went back to go work for like the large companies and said, it's one thing to learn how to run these businesses, so I need to basically do startups, but
Mm.
at the same time I did it for large companies, and so I learned how to run a true startup, but with a little bit more capital than I personally had, and so
Yeah.
did that, and yeah, now I've learned the ropes a little bit. Now that's when I have my own startup. It's actually a little bit better.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. And maybe if you can go into it a little bit. So, like, obviously at Home Depot, it's massive scale, massive complexity. How much did learning, about that complexity at scale across so many locations impact, how you're able to operate or build custom boxes today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've learned while I was growing all these different businesses is that how you grow is sort of like productized,
Mm.
right? And so it can be very different. So it's been very different. Like one's a payments company, another one's home improvement, another one's boxes, another one's media.
Yeah.
But roughly 80% of it is roughly the same. You kind of have to do the same general motions. And so, I think there's a way to sort of productize growth. And so when I came to doing my own startup, I kept, sort of had the game plan, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And sort of like knew the different levers I sort of needed to pull, and just sort of went about pulling it. And, even learning things like local SEO when I was at Yext, I would have never
Yeah.
thought like how important local SEO is. Like, because, more focused nationally on Home Depot.
Hmm.
But one of the first things I did was I put up two localized landing pages for our different locations, because we have one in Washington and one in Florida. So we,
Hmm.
spun up some different sites. So you just kind of learn things along the way and sort of apply the best practices to your own business.
Yeah, maybe go into that a little bit. So with Yext, obviously Yext is working with a lot of large brands, multi-location, solving for some of that SEO. What did you learn? So obviously you learned you should do it. How do you
Yeah.
do it well across multiple locations?
Yeah, it's one of the things that was quite shocking when I saw the return on investment that
Yeah,
people get is by far the highest I've seen across all. People always say like, should you do email or SEO or SEM? Like local SEO and local type marketing should be the top on your list. And of course,
yeah,
packaging we'll get to in a little bit is probably the
yeah,
second one.
yeah,
But yeah, I think having a game plan locally, like you just can't have it national,
yeah,
because one of the things I learned at Home Depot, I was in charge of like the assortments at the store level, and we used to have just like every single product in every single store, and that was a terrible idea. Right, riding lawnmowers in downtown New York, essentially, not a good idea.
yeah,
And so you definitely need to, have these like local flares. And so one of the things that Yext had was these local landing pages.
Mhm.
And I was a huge fan of them. Basically, you spin up like a website for each location. So
Yeah,
you have your corporate website, then each location has these,
yeah,
and you basically use that as a landing page to kind of spin off all the different types of things, like including social marketing. And that was mind-boggling how helpful that was, because you get
Yeah.
that local, you got the national sort of brand, but then you have the localization sort of spin-off, if you will. Like, gives you the 80/20 option, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah. I always think about it like there's a lot of scale beneath like McDonald's, right? Like
Yeah.
McDonald's doesn't necessarily need to do that because it is such a household name. Like there's
Yep.
one every 3 blocks. But if you're 300 locations, you're probably the only one in a pretty large radius. And so you
Yep.
can leverage kind of that mom and pop nature of being a local store while still having the power, the resources of the national thing. I think it's the ultimately interesting thing, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely agree that I don't think it happens enough, honestly. Is like, I think there's like, it's either one of the two. It's like once you get
Yeah.
past a couple of locations, now you're just national. You can't do things locally. And I think that's a big mistake. You're definitely not, maximizing your return if you do it that way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think you teased it a little bit. So, custom boxes, obviously, not digital websites, packaging, physical brand building.
Yep.
Um, what was kind of the lessons learned that led you to that? Right. So, you talked about local SEO and packaging being the two things you think need to get done better locally. What was the impetus there?
Yeah. So the thing that I saw, well, so I have a marketing background, including merchandising, and I just saw a box as being a billboard, right?
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
it's just a four-sided billboard, and the market is roughly 90% of the market is blank boxes,
Yeah.
and just was disrupting to me to be like, why are all these companies sending blank boxes when Amazon doesn't, they send custom box, Home Depot does, Walmart does, all these different companies, but all these
Yeah.
other smaller companies aren't. So, why is that? And so we just kind of went about, finding out why that was. And honestly,
Hmm.
it was because of price and, how fast things are and all that sort of stuff. And like, well, let's solve that. And then a big piece of that connected to the local side is that, if you're a franchise and you're sending out something blank, well, there's only so much that the mothership is going to do for you marketing wise. Well, you
Sure.
can put your basically message on a box with a landing page to your own website or your social activities, and
Yeah.
basically take advantage of them coming back to you without having to rely upon someone else doing something for you.
Yeah, I think, it makes me think of like the unboxing trend, right? Like it's been like the last 10 years on YouTube is like
Yep,
unboxing the next physical product. And you see some of those brands like Apple, where it truly is a magical unboxing experience, right? Like you
absolutely.
pull it up, it's beautifully put in there, it's all branded perfectly, it's simplistic. How much is that, does that drive into what you're trying to achieve there, where it's just like make that a brand activation for the customer?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I think it's important because again, it's when because if you're a digital brand, especially,
Yeah,
and it's your time to actually have that physical interaction with the customer, where if you have a blank box, they literally just bypass, they get the product, they move on.
sure.
However,
Yeah,
you give them something to think about, like, scan a QR code to find out more about this product, or scan a QR code to, find out why we're more environmentally friendly, like why we're
hmm,
different. Or again, to get something on your next order and that sort of thing. It just gives them,
yeah.
like, it's your chance to interact with the customer. And if you have a blank box, you don't do any of that. It's just a wasted opportunity for sure. And so we're definitely, pro unboxing.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that. Do you think like local mail has a chance for a comeback along these same lines? Because I do feel like digital is everywhere now. It's crowded. It's more
Yes.
expensive than it used to be. Do you think just local mail in general is also going to make a comeback there?
Yeah, I was actually reading a while back that a lot of the things that went away, including stores, right? And
Yeah,
so
hundred percent.
a lot of those things that sort of went away completely are coming back because
Yeah,
digital at first, when it first came out, was cheap, right? Doing something
yeah.
on Facebook, or
Oh,
if you're
Facebook.
kind
Yeah,
of
it's like cents on the dollar. Yeah,
right, it's so easy. But now a lot of
yeah,
those are getting more expensive, and so a lot of the kind of call it old school traditional stuff is actually
yeah,
coming back.
yep,
And I think that's actually is for two reasons. A, it's cheaper, but then there's also new technology that helps you localize things more. And so,
yeah.
yeah, having like those postcards,
Oh yeah,
those actually work.
it's weird. Yeah,
As long as you target it with data, you don't just like, I think
yeah.
before it's like
Spam a
you,
neighborhood.
yeah, exactly. As long as you can send it to the right people, then it makes total sense. Because again, having something like, even like catalogs, right? And so, having a nice
Yeah,
small catalog is something I think is going to come back, because again, the difference is before you sent it out to everyone. Now you can send it out to targeted people and have a QR code. So you're just with your mobile phone buying stuff, So
yeah.
there's a lot of things that you just have to do it a new way, do an old thing a new way. Then I think you'll be
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know if I've told this story before. When we first started Flamel, is one of the first ways we got like initial customers. I literally just like printed a letter to like 100 places around where I lived, and then signed it personally and put it into an actually handwritten envelope. We got like
That's
20
brilliant. Yeah.
calls out of it. It was like a 20% conversion rate. It was sick.
Yeah, because people aren't used to that.
It's
Like, we're not
weird.
getting
Yeah.
inundated anymore with that. It's like you go to your mailbox now, you're like, oh, I have stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a bill, right? It's like I either get bills or like random cards from my mom. That's the
Yeah.
only stuff I get in my mailbox these days.
No, that's right.
Um,
That's right.
That's interesting. I think that's really fascinating. When it comes to that, on the multi-location side, a lot of that is like the localization and the consistency of it. How would you help a system like that, right? If they do want to get down and build kind of localized packaging, what does that look like in operation, I guess?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like having the right different technology stack to sort of help support it. And so, I'm a big fan of Shopify from a ecom platform perspective. If you have something from inventory perspective, you got to make sure that you have something a platform actually allows you to have inventory management at that level.
Yep.
If you're doing something on a local marketing side of things, obviously you need someone like yourselves or Yext to be able to actually help them do things and manage things at a more local level. Because if you don't have that, then actually you have no chance of doing things on a locally.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. And maybe diving a little further into, you brought up like growth as a product, and I think that's really interesting because that's a very we're a venture backed company. My whole career has been in venture capital and tech startups, and like I think that's the whole thing. You win if you can productize your go to market motion, right? It's got to be efficient and it's got to be repeatable. What you touched on some of it with the local sites and everything, but what does that look like for custom boxes? Like, what's your growth engine? How are you building that brand around those principles?
Yeah, the biggest thing is to figure out like what problem you're trying to solve.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Number one thing is if you're not solving a problem, it's really hard to kind of grow your business. So that's the first thing that we had. And so our problem that we're trying to solve is, again, we think the market for blank boxes should be near zero. But, so we're basically trying to figure out like why that is. And then that basically generates your value prop. Your value prop is basically how you're solving that problem and how you communicate. And so like on our website, you can see front and center, like what we do differently, like how we're basically solving that problem. So like, our prices are lower. We have a more limited supply. With all of those prices, we're a lot easier, a lot faster. And so, and we actually allow for tracking with QR codes and that sort of thing. And so whenever you sort of talk about your growth, you need to be also to talk about your value prop. And then after it's like, well, now you need to figure out how to grow, right? Then you go to your marketing side of things and just, obviously you have to still use Google, still use Meta, and email marketing are big things, but then try to figure out new ways of doing things as well.
Yeah. So I'm always a fan of weird experiments, and one we have run is our platform kind of lets us spin up social content really quick, really easy, right? And so we'll do that for a brand, and then we'll send them a month of content that they didn't ask for, they didn't know, and it's like, what the heck is this? Is that something you've ever tried before? Like build the custom box for a brand and send it to them so they're getting a box that's better than their own box that's labeled with their stuff?
We did, yeah. Especially kind of like with you when you the first 6 months of starting something is so hard, right?
Just and so throw Jello at the wall and hopefully something sticks, right?
Yeah, and so we did that. We said, well, we have a printer.
Yeah, we've got a box printer. Let's make boxes.
we have time, so we just started printing boxes for people. And like we're in this like pretty big community for warehouses, and we just basically like, who else is here? Let's just print them, and we set them outside their door. And the adoption rate was huge.
Yeah.
Like they're like, yes, how can I get this box? So yeah, I think you have to do like those types of things, and that's the hacking part, right? You have to sort of hack your way to the first, definitely 100 probably customers, but then after that it's a little smoother.
Yeah, it is. It's my favorite part, but it's absolutely the hardest part because you constantly fail. It's just nothing is working, and then something kind of works.
Yeah, there's nothing like that first order.
Yeah,
I literally have it taped up behind me.
Do you really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Just because it's such a memory for like how long it took to get that first order. It takes like so long, and then you're like, oh, I really like someone likes my stuff. Yeah. And then it just starts coming in. So you always have to remind yourself. Your first location is the hardest, right? And so
100%. 100%. It's always great perspective because it's not like you don't have problems once you start growing. They're just different problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's usually a lot more of them. You usually have one really big problem when you start, which is the lack of customers. Exactly. And then once you start having a lot of customers, you start having a lot more problems. But I always say I had this saying even at Home Depot is like sales cures all.
Right, yeah.
Right. And
Something
so,
about money coming in the door is really
yeah,
just a panacea for how everybody feels, how the business looks, like everything you're thinking about. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I always remind myself it can get bad, but the thing that's worse is no sales.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe talk on that a little bit. So obviously you've built, you had like a pretty entrepreneurial corporate career, I guess is how I would say it. It's kind of an atypical corporate career. What have been the biggest differences, as like you're on your own now with custom boxes, you've done it a couple times before versus building that in a larger company setting?
I think the biggest thing is the risk reward factor is a
Sure.
lot different. And
Yeah.
so when you have what I'll call not unlimited budgets, but not your own budget, not
Yeah.
taking from your bank account.
Fortune 1000 budgets. Yeah, a little
Yeah,
different.
exactly. And so you're more able to take bigger risks, and those risks tend to pay off,
Hmm.
but you don't know which one. And
Right.
so, you can take 10 different risks and you're like, well, I know, nine of these are going to flame out, but there's one there that I can do and it's going to like nail and it's going
Yeah.
to do really well. And you just don't really have that same opportunity when you're doing it for yourself. You have to be a little bit
Hmm.
more risk averse because you can't afford, like if it's the ninth one out of 10,
Yeah.
it's going to be very, very painful. So I think that's the biggest thing,
Yeah.
is just the limited amount of things. And of course, recruiting people is a little bit different too, right? It's like
Sure.
when we were hiring for our teams, for each of those companies when we were first starting out, and it's, of course, you get thousands of resume submissions. I'd like to say we get thousands. It's not quite that many now, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit less.
Yeah.
So you just have to be, I think honestly you just have to be just a little bit sharper about what you do. You can
Yeah.
you can operate at 80% effectiveness when you're working for a large company. You got to be at 95% or higher when
Yeah.
you're starting out
There's
doing your own
there's
thing.
no guardrails, is kind of how I see it.
Yeah,
Like
that's right.
you've taken the maximal risk. That risk is behind you. And now the scary part is it's just like there's nothing protecting you. You've just got to go execute and you
Yep.
are fully open to the failure, right?
Exactly. Yep. And just kind of roll with it. Yeah, you got to move on. If you fail, at least you can fail fast. Like a large company don't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
At least you can do that when you're on your own.
Yeah. Do you think you would ever go back to working within a large company?
Uh, Maybe I will never say never.
Sure.
So because there is some benefits of doing that, but not
Literally
for
benefits in some cases.
literally benefits. Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's what kept me in for a long time. But I kind of like doing startups for large companies. So I don't think I would ever go back into like the cog of a wheel of a big company.
Yeah.
But doing a startup like thing for large companies, I actually
Sure.
enjoy. I actually do think more companies should do it.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I think the VC world takes advantage of the corporations not being able to do startups.
100%. Yeah.
And so the
It's
more, yeah,
yeah.
there should be like every company should have its own corporate venture arm.
Yeah.
Like if you're past $100 million, you should have one. And I would say probably less than 5%, probably less than 1% of companies do.
Yeah.
But they should, and it would be
It's
advantageous to everyone.
I full heartedly agree with you on that. Like literally, West Coast venture capital is just the arbitrage of Fortune 500s not building their own stuff.
Yeah,
Like
that's right.
that is all it is. It's just a passing of money between those two.
Yes, that's
And
right.
the interesting thing is, if you look at the trends, corporate venture funding is directly tied to economic performance, like global economic performance. And so, if
Yep.
there's any form of downturn, it is like the first thing that leaves the balance sheet. And it's ironic because that's when VCs lean in, right? Because
Yeah,
they're like, hey,
better
things are going
values.
bad. This is our opportunity to take advantage. And so it's just like
Yep.
it makes itself worse over time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually a really good book, The Rise of the Rest.
Oh yeah, yeah,
By
Steve
Steve
Case, right?
Case. That's right. I
Yeah,
would highly recommend people reading that, because it's just such a different way to think about things. And so, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I met him when he was going on that tour, so shout out Steve.
Ah,
I'm
nice.
sure he's
Very
listening
cool.
in.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah. No, I love that, and maybe kind of wrapping up with a few minutes. I know we touched on it some with like local marketing and everything. You've got a lot of contacts there, right? From national brands to the brands you're working with at Yext to the company, the customers you have with custom boxes. What are the things people are doing wrong today? Like that you think, hey, if you go do X Y Z, you immediately are going to improve yourself.
Yeah, I think number one is a lot of companies don't emphasize local as much, and
Yeah,
because it's like I sell this time and time again. I
sure.
would say 9 out of 10 of the largest companies are putting other things in front of local, when you just look at the sheer return on investment, return on ad spend, is
Yeah.
local should be like probably your second thing you do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's the 10th thing. And I just think that's a huge mistake for people. So that's number one, is like, make sure you do something. I would say number two is make sure you balance the control versus flexibility aspect. And so I'd say the people who were doing local probably did local to put like too many boundaries around it, and so they didn't like
Yep.
give like the local folks enough control to basically take advantage of that local side of things. Like, yes, you're doing something, but to take full advantage of it, do something
Yep.
a little bit more. And then, yeah, of course, connect it, in some way to like various different marketing tactics, whether it's the social side of things, on the packaging side of things. Just make sure all those things connect, because a lot of it is like you do it, but it doesn't align to anything else that you're doing. And so I think those are probably the three biggest things.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And, we touched on it a little bit with why custom boxes can be a thing, right? Like you found this problem set, you solved for those problem sets, and you've kind of innovated in that space. Where do you think that's going to go in the next 10 years? Like, how does packaging change in the next 10 years? Like, let's assume, to your point, there's no more empty boxes going out there. Everything's custom branded. Where does it go from there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to make it smarter. So today, I think a lot of people just, which is it's a tiered thing, right? So there's obviously too many people just not doing anything, but then the next mistake is not allowing it to connect to anything. So the advance of QR codes is one of the most helpful things that we have going forward. And before 10 years ago, there was a huge push on QR codes, but the system wasn't ready.
There was, and then it died, and it came back.
Yeah, actually, I'm like, this is gonna be a thing at some point. I wrote about this because the problem was you had to download an app, right? And that was you had to do a two-step thing. But now, at least my phone and most phones now, you just point your picture at it and it pops up. That, ever since people did that, that is what's going to make the difference on basically anything that you can print, right? That's why those catalogs or anything. And so the box, I think, is the biggest part of that, because again, it's an interactive billboard that you can track, right? So all that goes anytime you can. So now it's something that you can actually have a physical thing that you actually can track. So it's, you can't do that with a billboard. An actual, it's like too far. Well, maybe if you just do a giant QR code.
All it is the QR code.
It probably has been done. I'm sure someone did that.
Well, that's what Coinbase did a Super Bowl commercial.
That's right.
A few years ago, that was just a QR code, right?
And that, exactly. That little like tracker thing too. People have been doing that. And those are brilliant things, because that's what gets people to think about doing something different. And that's how you sort of connect. Again, if you ever can connect new, like old media, traditional media, to new media, that's where you're really going to win. And including stuff that we're doing and stuff that you're doing is a really good idea.
Yeah, last night I was in preparation for this, I was just thinking through and thinking about that question, and I also think there's this like massive spot for like reusable packages, right? So like, because people get more packages than they ever had before, right? And so they have more of these things all around the place. And the one I was thinking of, I had a bottle of wine shipped to me, and I was like, it'd be really interesting to be able to just in some way fold that cardboard box into a wine rack or something, like a quiche little reusable product that like, once I get this, it's not like the box goes away. Like maybe it folds into a toy for my kid or something like that. Like, I think that's a fascinating innovation. I don't know. I'm sure someone's doing it. I haven't seen it, but I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. So Target does some of that today. Like, so they actually have it. So I think there's like a bus on it, and so you can kind of use it in some ways.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can actually get into it, and it's going to kind of look like, I have a son. He, like, whenever he got a really big box, he would design it into a car.
Heck yeah.
All the time, right? And so they said, well, if they're doing this, let's go ahead and make this actually into an actual car that he can get in. And so people are doing that, but I agree with you. I think not enough, and probably not enough people even recycle them. And so that's like the biggest thing for us is like at least recycle them, if not, figure out new ways to utilize them for sure. And that's definitely a good idea to figure out how to do that for other people.
As we sat here and talked about this, and you're talking about yourself, we have a cat. We don't have children yet, my wife and I, but we have a cat, and he gets into every box. So I'm like, screw it, put a house on it, knock some windows out, and all of a sudden it's a cat house,
Yes, that's right. That's exactly
right. Chewy, there you go. Chewy, there's your next idea.
Exactly. They definitely need to do that, because they definitely, they customize their boxes, so there's no reason for them not to do that as well. So that's a good call.
No, I love that. Interesting. Okay,
Well,
awesome.
the good
So
news is every other brand that's listening that does anything when the pet side of things or kid side of things now has both
we,
what they should do and where they should go do it. So,
I'm gonna
we can
bring this
definitely help
up.
you.
We literally have, we're about to do a series on the pet care industry for the franchise. So we've got like
Yeah.
Centown, Salty Dog, like Cooper Scoopers,
Yeah.
a few others coming on. So
It's a
I'll
brilliant
pitch
thing
it.
because
I'll pitch
people
it
will
to
love
them.
it. I mean, they will never forget your brand. Like do something
Yeah.
like that is create something. They will never forget your brand because you're literally have it there all
Yeah,
the time.
if you
Right.
send a toy to a millennial's pet, I mean,
Yeah,
come
that's
on,
right.
they're gonna love you forever.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's a good idea.
um, okay, so this next section we always like to do just like quick hitters. The idea is question first thing that comes to your mind, 5, 6, 7 seconds, whatever. If that sounds good to you,
Sure. Absolutely.
awesome. So most underrated tool in your growth stack.
Local SEO and of course custom packaging and I think AI and
Yeah,
so like our AI chatbot is definitely something that's been really helpful for us.
that's awesome. A brand that you think is nailing local execution currently. That's not custom boxes.
So Warby Parker was doing a
Yep.
really good job.
Shout out Warby Parker. I'm wearing them right now.
Yeah, no, it's they were I was at Yext while we did this, and they have made a really good transition and have and one of those companies that started taking local real seriously, and they
Yeah.
launched new local pages, and they're doing a nice job.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is something you would tell yourself from Home Depot days now that you've been on this side?
Make things easier is I think a lot of times corporations you tend to overthink things is
Sure.
and there's usually an easier answer out there than what like there's an easier scrappy way to do things in enterprise. So
Yeah, yeah.
start scrappy.
Yeah, it was funny. We had the CMO of White Castle on. I think that episode came out like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she was like, "Oh, I love our team. We're a really scrappy team." And she's like, "I can tell because they come in and instead of wanting to spend $1 million, they're like, hey, it's 10,000. Like we can get this done for $10,000." And I'm like,
Yep.
that's a great thing if you can be in a big company and think that way. Like that's where execution happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like we said, like, just having some sort of scrappy way of going about it, whether it's a VC or a scrappy tools or something,
Yeah.
it's just something that just is always good to go about a startup perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's something people don't know about you?
I am really really focused on saving time.
Yeah,
And so I think time is one of the things that obviously it's the most important resource everyone has,
yeah.
and just trying to figure out how to use it most wisely. And there's a book that we all a lot of people read is like Buy Back Your Time.
Okay.
Highly recommend that people go read that because you're probably doing something today that you probably shouldn't be doing and someone else
Yeah,
should be, especially if you're running a company. And so that's just kind of talking about it. And so I am obsessed about spending my time the right way.
yeah. Follow up to that one. What's the best ways that you would recommend us to save our time?
AI, honestly, like don't
Sure.
fight it.
Yeah,
I've been around a couple different things from the ecom perspective, and so I was really all like when I started doing stuff for Home Depot, I'm like e-commerce is going to be huge,
yeah,
and then there's like mobile is going to be huge, but then there's always a bunch of other things that happen between then and now, but nothing I don't think has been as big as AI. So
I
it's
fully
kind of
agree. Yeah,
like you have to do ecom, it's going to come faster. So I think we're at like 20%, 25% penetration for ecom.
yeah,
After 20 years, it's going to be a lot faster than that. So don't fight it, learn it, and use
yeah,
it.
yeah. It is. I fully agree. And then wrapping up, we always like to give the guests, a minute to kind of tell people where they can find you, what you're selling, what you're pushing now. It's your time to kind of say what you want.
No, I definitely appreciate it. So it's down here. It's customboxes.io. And basically all you need to go to the website. You don't need to talk to salespeople. We make things super easy. All you need is your logo, in fact, if you really want it. So you can basically go check out in minutes. And yeah, the great thing is like we know we're the lowest price in the marketplace. So we actually give people comp shops, kind of like, what is it, Allstate Insurance or whatever that is. We do
Yeah.
the same thing, give people, here's everyone else's prices. So yeah, just please go visit the website and yeah, make your own little cat house or your dog house
There
or
you go,
your
yeah.
buses for your kids. So either you can do it yourself or we can do it for you. But
There
yeah,
you go.
come over to our website.
Awesome. Well, Derick, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Love the insights you kind of brought into it. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And everybody else, thank you for listening to another episode of Behind the Franchise. We're always a pleasure to have you. And we look forward to you joining us for the next ones. Talk to you later.